Now we come on to a most important question. How come our beliefs and myths and legends about God or the gods are so closely linked to this idea of good versus evil? Why is it that we humans have always depended on divine commandments to tell us what we should do and what we shouldn't do? I think, by my own standards and by what's written in the Bible, I lead a fairly good life. But because I don't believe in God, can I, in your view, be good?
Absolutely. Absolutely, you can be good without believing in God. But the dilemma, Robert, is who sets the definition of good? For how long can you be good? How many centuries can we be good if there is not an underwriting definition of who sets the standard for good?
Where do you get your moral guidelines and codes of behavior from? Tell me about that.
You have to have a starting point. You have to have a defining point. And so I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. That's where all my guidelines come from, my passion, my energy, my guidance, my peace. It's all from Jesus Christ.
I learned what morals I may have more by observing my parents, their modeling, and it never seemed to me to be a great issue. It reminds me a bit, you know, of I think it was Abraham Lincoln, who said that when I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. And he added the unfortunate phrase, that is my religion. I would say that is my worldview, and I'd be happy.
Could I be a good person, in your view, even if I don't believe in a God?
Absolutely. Because God, yes, to me, my whole life, my prayers, the way I relate to others belongs to the fact that there is a creator. But there are people who like to look at the creators in a different way. But that doesn't mean that they are less human beings than I am. If I understand the beauty of my religion, then I have to relate to people who are, whether they belong to my faith, or even those people who may not have faith in the established meaning of faith. Their humanity is what counts.
The values that I learned and my conception of what was good and what was bad and so on, I learned from life. I mean, I learned from listening to people, I learned from reading books, I learned from watching the world around me. And more, what I saw was a world in which human beings should be making the basic decisions, and that too often religion was being used as an excuse either to justify injustice or to kind of paralyze people.
I don't believe in God in the way in which the vast majority of people on this planet use the word God. Even though I don't believe in God, can I be good?
Yes, you can be good, but get the boundaries and the framework of good, that's something which human mind cannot produce. So, for example, the other day, someone says to me, Rabbi, I'm a good human being and I don't believe in God. So I said to him, could you tell me, identify why you think you're a good person? Explain it to me. And he said to me, I don't hurt anybody. So you know what I said to him? All you're telling me is that you're not a bad person. Tell me why you're a good person. And he thinks and he thinks. He says, Rabbi, you got a point.
Bruce Springsteen called it empty sky the days after September the 11th, 2001, when there were no planes flying. The terrible events that happened here at the World Trade Center that day bore shocking and horrifying witness to the extremes that some people will go to in the name of their beliefs.
The belief-driven political fanatic or religious fanatic who will perform a public act of violence, they are, by all our measures, sane. You know, when you go to a theater, you operate in the world of symbol and reverberation. When you're at a religious ceremony, where action is almost zero, the reverberation of the symbols is huge. A priest lifts up a cup of wine and holds a biscuit, and with the simple gesture of offering it to a suppliant, he reenacts not breakfast, but the redemption of the world and of all mankind. There is a state which is dreamlike, which we call oneroid, which occurs sometimes in epilepsy and sometimes in psychosis, but I think we are often near to that state in daily life when we give ourselves over, as in hypnosis, to some ceremony or set of symbols that happily shapes our action and instructs us how we should behave.
What do you say to people who kill themselves and others in the name of God? And they say they're doing a pious act.
People do things in the name of God. People do things in all kinds of names. There's one major difference. And people say to me, Rabbi, religion, look on the Chachmenis, look on the Taliban, they're religious people. The answer is, you could take anything, if you want, and rationalize it in your own mind to come up with your own program. The human mind, on the contrary, that strengthens my position. There are people who have an agenda, and they're twisting and turning whatever they want in order to deliver the message.
The one item that is still in my memory is when one of the teachers, he was in SS uniform, but he was only there once or twice a week. He was a math teacher in high school. And he had on his, and that's it, belt buckle, Gott ist mit uns, God is with us. And I said, well, if they like God so much and the Jews have the same God, why want to get rid of him? You know, I couldn't understand that.
I know there's some doctors who act in an inappropriate way. Therefore, medicine is no good? Or there's some lawyers who are inappropriate, who act this way. That's why law is no good? We cannot judge a religion because some people did something wrong. Okay. Let me finish. You must judge religion by religion.
The Quran says, sparing a human life, respecting a human dignity is part of your religious faith. Now, many times people misunderstand this because in the Quran, for example, like the scriptures before the Quran, which came to say tooth for tooth, eye for eye, the Quran says no. The justification, the sanctity of human soul must be respected.
If you take the whole history of humankind and if you add up the things that have happened in the name of God, isn't it a good idea to try and not behave destructively in the name of God?
I think you overgeneralize there on that whole human history in the name of God. If you take and add up the events that happened without God, you take someone like Marx or Stalin, who had beginnings of faith, left them, and then developed their own definitions of good, their own ideologies, and ended up murdering millions. No, I don't think we should get ourselves all hand-wringing and wrought up over the evil that's done in the name of religion. We should say it's wrong, we learn from it, we condemn it, and we move on to do good in the name of religion.
Communism failed economically, which was its premise of survival. Nazism failed in the battleground, which was its premise of survival. Maoism failed on the premise of the traditional Chinese sense of the pragmatic, and it could not go on. The problem of the theologically based certainties is that there is no way they can ever be contradicted. They are self-fulfilling. They are black box systems. It is whatever the deity's name is, or however is expressed, it is perfect for all time. So it is the believer who fails.
It's impossible not to be taken by the story of the man from the land of Uz, who not only was the richest guy around, but was also morally pure, blameless as the text describes him, with a wonderful family and a generous heart that was particularly inclined towards the less fortunate. And within something like 48 hours, just about everyone and everything he had was suddenly taken from him, leaving him a boil-covered pauper who couldn't figure out what the hell had gone wrong. And the kicker of it all is that the text says it all happened to him without any reason or cause. In light of this, it's deeply puzzling when most people talk about the book of Job, especially when most Christians talk about it. They do so as if the text were a testament to the loving protection of God during times of great distress. It was precisely this deeply misguided take on the book of Job that I saw articulated in two recent videos here on YouTube, which prompted me to do this response. I've put links to the two videos to the right of the screen here. One is by a YouTuber called Yoke Up. The other is by a YouTuber called Whistlin' Phil. In the description box for Yoke Up's video on Job, the following appears. Quote, "The book of Job in the Bible tells of God's amazing love through amazingly difficult circumstances." Wrong. Doesn't do that at all. Rather, the book tells the story of a morally pure devotee of God's, a devotee about whom God boasts, and shortly thereafter gratuitously hands over to a powerful adversary. Now, just think about that for a second. Can you imagine yourself doing something like this to someone you love, who has done nothing wrong, and who has only loved you faithfully? You mothers who are watching this, would you hand your child over to a wolf? You spouses and partners who are watching this, would you hand your spouse or partner over to a criminal? Would any of you make your beloved stuff and loved ones available to a miscreant? God did, according to the book of Job. Amazing love? In the words of Charles Wesley, how can it be? Continuing, by the end of the second chapter, Job has pretty much been wiped out, losing almost everyone and everything he had. And then God goes silent for 36 chapters. Job is bewildered by what has happened to him. He's infuriated by God's silence. Again and again in those 36 chapters, Job says God is an unjust and mendacious bully who sets out to terrify, overwhelm, and lie about human beings. When God finally reappears in the 38th chapter, he shows up in a whirlwind, and, amazingly, he's furious with Job. God answers none of Job's questions, but rather thunders away about how he is almighty, and Job is not. Pache Yokup's claim, there isn't a word, not a single word, in the text about, quote, God's amazing love through amazingly difficult circumstances. Nothing in the text offers a demonstration of amazing divine love. As David Plotz puts it in his excellent The Complete Book of Job on Slate.com, I've put a link to this to the right of the screen here, God has only won in the way that the president wins when he argues with his assistants, or a principal wins when she suspends a student. The powerful can crush the impotent whenever they want. Hardly the stuff of amazing love through amazingly difficult circumstances. Let's take a closer look at the story from the beginning. In chapters 1 and 2 of Job, two meetings between God and Satan are described. During the first meeting, Satan entices God to place everything and everyone Job has in Satan's power. During the second meeting, Satan entices God to place Job in Satan's power, with one exception: Satan may not kill Job. In his excellent book, God, a Biography, Jack Miles aptly sums up what occurs in these two meetings. The Lord is susceptible to the suggestions of a celestial being, Satan, hostile to a human being. The Job writer presents God as prey to temptation by an actual demon. When I pointed this out in a text comment on Yokup's video, he responded, quote, "God has never been and never will be tempted." Really? Let's look at the text. Job 2:3 has God say to Satan, "You incited me against Job to ruin him without any reason." Take that in for a second. Does it remind you of anything? And the man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me from the tree, and I ate." And the woman said, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." The Hebrew word translated incited is suth. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. It means to incite, to allure, to entice. Here are a couple of other examples of its use in the Hebrew Scriptures. Deuteronomy 13:6-8. If your brother, your mother's son, or your son or daughter, or the wife you cherish, or your friend who is your own soul, entice you secretly, saying, "Let us go to serve other gods," you shall not yield to him or listen to him. Clearly, that's temptation. 1 Chronicles 21:1. Then Satan stood up against Israel and incited David to number Israel. Jack Miles is exactly right in his book. The Job writer presents God as being tempted by Satan and yielding to the temptation not once, but twice. And in God's own words from Job 2:3, it was without any reason. The Hebrew word translated without any reason is kinam, which means gratuitously, for no purpose, in vain, without cause. God, by his own admission in the book of Job, twice gives in to Satan's enticement to ruin Job for no purpose, with no reason, with no cause. God has never been and never will be tempted? The book of Job begs to differ. In a text comment on Yokup's video, a YouTuber called CKrieger36 opined, God was testing Job's faith. In a text comment on his own video, Whistlin' Phil suggested, God let it happen in approximately the same way I let my daughters make mistakes. Once again, let's look at what the text has God saying about the purpose of all this. Job 2:3, God speaking to Satan. You incited me against Job to ruin him without any reason. Shall we not let the text of Job speak for itself on this point?